feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jiggle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Chasing the Pennant podcast. Doing a quick one here on a Tuesday. We've only played 2 games since our last recorded episode on Sunday. That was the doubleheader today. The Phillies splitting with the Boston Red Sox. Another disappointing split with a bottom-feeding team, which, ideally you want to get both of those games, but they do split. Coming back to win the first game in the bottom half of the 7th inning on a Alec Bohm walk-off base hit, and then losing the second game 5-2. Anyway, I'm your host, Rob, joined tonight by Sean. Sean, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. Finally glad to be back on the pod. It feels like it's been forever. I think it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on here, but, working a lot, mostly at night, so I miss a lot of these Phillies games, especially the 2 tonight, even though I was following along very intently. But I'm back. I'm glad to be talking about Phillies baseball, and I'm doing pretty well.
We're glad to have you back. And we're also joined by Andrew. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing well. It's a little confusing day because the temperature went from 100 degrees yesterday to today. It's dropping down, or it's been like 50 degrees and windy down here. So it's been very odd.
Wait. 50 in Oakland? That's got to be like an all-time low down there.
Right? Yeah,
50 degrees? Oh,
it's crazy how cold it dropped fast down here, and it's just extremely windy. So it's just funny because not expected in September.
Well, that's pretty wild. It's pretty mild here in Pennsylvania. It's pretty mild. It's like 85 today here in PA. But I know my uncle, who is out in Colorado right now, sent my dad a picture that it's actually snowing in Colorado.
Yeah, I saw it. The Broncos had to move their practice indoors because of the blizzard that they're getting. I was like, it's only September.
We got a blizzard in Colorado. We've got uniquely cold weather down in Oklahoma, and we've got an unseasonably warm September day here in Pennsylvania. So 2020, shit's weird.
As I said, 2020 continues to find a way to get weirder.
It really does. It really does. Anyway, since we just did a show on Sunday, and we basically previewed this Red Sox doubleheader that we had today, and we also previewed the 7 games in 5 days against our arch nemesis, Miami Marlins. We're just going to quick recap what happened today. The first game of the doubleheader, the Phillies had to come from behind. The heroics of Alec Bohm with a 2-out, 2-strike, 2-run single in the bottom half of the 7th inning, which with these new 2020 rules, doubleheaders, the 7th inning is essentially the 9th inning. So the big hit for Bohm They actually blew a 4-1 lead in that game, and were trailing 5-4 at that point, and then he got the walk-off base hit. And then the second game, offense pretty listless, pitching not great, a 5-2 loss, which, normally a 5-2 loss, you kind of just say, whatever. But when you lose like that to a team that's 14-29 coming in, it's not a great look. Sean, we'll start with you. And I know you weren't able to watch the games, but you were keeping up. And what's your takeaway from that? Like, to me personally, splitting with the 14-29 team is not acceptable, especially at home. The Phillies, like, is this? Do they need to be better than that down the stretch if you're going to buy into them as a playoff team?
Absolutely, I think they need to be better. When it comes to a doubleheader against anybody, you take at least one win and you feel okay. Where this team is, they should win 2 games against the Red Sox, but they pulled out 1 win, so you can't entirely say that they was a waste. I believe the Braves lost, so they ended up gaining, half a game on the Braves on the day total. So any day that you can keep up with, your top division rival and even gain a half a game on them is a big day. So, it's 2 games that they should have won, and they let one slip, but all around it was an okay day. I do think they need to play better down the stretch, though.
Yeah. To answer your question, yes, the Braves did lose. They got smoked 8-0 by the Miami Marlins. 6-0. I'm looking up the line score right now. 6-0 went 6 innings, a 3-hit ball, 6 strikeouts. So another magnificent outing. His ERA drops to 1.80. It's gonna be fun facing him. That's for sure. Anyway, yeah, it's double headers, like you said, always kind of a tough thing. You take what you can get. You just normally you would be happy with a 1 win. I just think today personally was a situation where they could have gotten 2 wins against a bad team and they weren't able to pull it off. Andrew, were you able to watch the games today?
Yeah, I was able to watch both of them.
What's your takeaway from their performance?
I think it goes similar a little bit to what Sean said. Yeah, it's tough to get 2 games in a doubleheader, and I think you expect to get one hopefully, and then you try to steal the second one. The thing that continues to concern me is something we continue to talk about is, they found a way to win that first game, but again, like you mentioned, they had the lead for most of it. The bullpen blows it, and you play catch up, and it's a good sign to see the offense not give up there and win. But then you get to the second game, and it's the same story as we've seen all year. You jump out early, you get 2 runs in the first inning, and then you get shut out the rest of the way. It's like, where does the offense go? Like, especially they know, you know how bad the pitching's been. You know what it's going to get. Especially with, Vince actually didn't look too bad today for his first start in a while, only giving up 2 runs. But then you bring in David Phelps and Heath Hembright, 2 guys you traded for, and they give up runs. It's like it's the same story over and over again, where the offense gets shut down after the first couple innings, and then the bullpen comes in and gives the game away. It's just, I think that's what the most frustrating thing is. And if it was something different where, you lose the second game, just 8-6 or something, the offense is consistent throughout the game, and maybe the starting pitcher has a really bad outing for a change or something, that'd be different to say, but it's like, it's the same story here, and that's what makes it concerning for me, really believing in this team to make a true playoff run. Like, yeah, they'll make the playoffs, and I don't know if you guys saw what Zach Greinke said that today after they lost the first game of their doubleheader, when asked about the playoff situation, because obviously the Astros are struggling, and he just said, well, everybody makes the playoffs this year, so if you don't make it, you don't deserve it or whatever. And that's the kind of way I'm at too, is this team, as long as you're playing 500, you're going to make the playoffs. It's a matter of what can you do with it. And with this the continuation of just the poor play throughout these kind of games the same way over and over again, that's what makes it so tough to believe them as true contenders.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, they had that hot streak. They won 10 out of 11, and then they had a pretty tough Mets series in which they ended up getting the split. Yeah, it was nice to get that last game there. Gene Segura with a big home run. But today, just going out and playing average baseball again. Another thing that I noticed is Bryce Harper, 0 for the day, 0 for 5 between the 2 games. His struggles continued. I know they gave him the day off up in New York a few games ago, and in hopes that would kind of right the ship with him. Still struggling a little bit, and so I think that maybe with the end of the season coming up with less than 20 games to go, maybe he's pressing a little bit to kind of get back into the swing of things, get back to what he was in the first half of the season by the time the playoffs roll around. And what's your guys' takeaway on Bryce? Does it look like he's pressing a little bit? Does it look like he's maybe getting away from some of those good habits that he had to start off the season? He choked up with 2 strikes. He was swinging to put the ball in play as opposed to hit for power, and he was doing a lot of the things that he was doing well at the end of last season. And it seems like right now he's kind of in the same kind of funk that he was in the middle of last season. So, any concerns at all? And Sean, we'll start with you. Any concerns about Bryce, or do you think it's just a funk that he'll be able to ride out and get back to what he was doing before?
Bryce has always found a way to get out of these funks. I think he's going to end up being fine. I think this is just one of those stretches where, he's hitting the ball hard here and there. It's not like he's not still, getting those hard contact hits. He had one today that he just missed that he really could have used that almost went out during the second game. And, I think he ends up riding the ship. It's just like Reese to start the year. I think I mean, obviously Reese is one of the streakiest hitters we've seen in a long time, but
Streakiest one I've ever seen in my lifetime.
He has a double Herrera by far. But I mean, I think Bryce has a tendency to overthink things like this. He'll start to get frustrated and he'll blame himself. I think he just has to relax. He's got to get out there. He's got to play the game that he knows how, and I think he'll get out of it personally. And there's no way he's going to move in the lineup. There's no way he's going to get benched in right field. It doesn't matter how much he struggles. He's going to have the time to figure it out by himself.
Yeah, I'm on board with that as well. And I think with Bryce, it usually takes one swing. If I remember correctly, last season, it was a home run that he hit out in Arizona. The Phillies were getting killed in this game. They were down by like 10 runs, and he hit a home run to the opposite field, I think in like the top of the ninth inning or something like that. And that was kind of the thing, that one swing that he needed last season to get himself going for a really hot second half. And hopefully, sometime in this Marlins series, hopefully as soon as possible in the first game, he's able to park one, or he's able, to get something like a bases clearing double or something like that, a big hit like that. And, that's what it'll do it. Just getting a big hit or hitting a ball out, that's, just one swing that'll get him going and get him back on track. Andrew, what's your takeaway with Bryce? Do you think that he's close to getting that one swing?
I do. I think you saw today, he had some pretty good swings on a couple different at-bats. He keeps hitting them at different players recently. I think with him, too, is we've seen these slumps before, even when he was in Washington. He's a pretty streaky hitter. He'll go through different months like that. And like you said, it really takes one swing for him to get out of it. And I think one positive note, and this is something I think I kept saying with Hoskins, where you kind of still had a little hope, like you still had hope that he'd turn it around and believed in that, was it's not like it's affecting his overall game. Like, he's still making plays in the field. He's not striking out any different than the way he usually does. He's still seeing pitches and still walking, just like he usually has. Like, in his last 15 games, he's walked 15 times. So it's not like he's not seeing the ball that well to me. He's still seeing it. It just seems like his timing might have dropped off a little bit or something. And I think that's something you're going to see, and especially in a season like this, which is so many games back to back, they'll get worn down a little bit. And the way he is, I think, like you said, it'll just take one or two good hits for him to kind of get back into the rhythm. And I think when it's all said and done, he'll be fine. And it's not like, it is a little concerning because it is kind of dragging out a little bit now. But overall, I'm not too worried about it. I think eventually he'll find his groove again.
Yeah, he needs to get going again. JT needs to get going again. But back to Bryce, playing in center field for the first time in a while today. And Sean, you mentioned you thought that this was kind of, I don't know, maybe not a shot at Adam Hazley, but just Joe Girardi lacking trust in Hazley to play center field after he had that big misplay on Sunday that kind of kick-started what was a pretty bad game for the Phillies. What's your takeaway from that? Do you think that, maybe it spells the end of Hazley in center field, or do you think that it's a situation where Hazley's kind of in the doghouse and just needs to work his way back?
It's a situation. It's not about the defense, although I don't think that helped Hazley's case at all. It's the fact that they haven't played Hazley. They haven't put him in the lineup against a left-handed pitcher at all this year. I don't know if he's a lefty this year. I'm sure that's easy to find out, but it's alarming how little they trust him against left-handed pitchers, because any starting or even platooning Major League Baseball player, position player, needs to be able to hit against both sides of the plate, or against both sides of the mound, and for them to not even allow him to start in center field when the guy that he was platooning with gets injured, it's super alarming. And Bryce has been so comfortable in right field, and he's been pretty great defensively, I would say, in the last 2 years that we've had him. And to kind of, I don't think it, messes with him. I think outfielders can easily transition between positions if they've played there before. But I think the fact that they put him in center over trusting Hazley, in a 10-game span where you're going to lose Roman Quinn, it's super alarming. There's got to be something that Girardi or Joe Dillon sees in Adam Hazley's swing that they just do not trust. They think it's an automatic out against a lefty, to the point where they're not even going to give him a chance And I mean, if that's the kind of hitter Hazley is, especially with the year he's had hitting regardless against righties, then my thoughts on Hazley are pretty low right now.
Yeah, he's got 3 total at bats against left-handed pitching this year. 0 for 3. And those are the only 3 plate appearances, no walks or anything. So yeah, very, very limited sample size against lefties. They just don't trust him at all in that situation, and not really hitting that great against righties either. But yeah, it's been a tough go of it for Adam Hazley this year. Andrew, do you still have any sort of faith in Hazley's ability to live up to his first round selection status?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's a little early to give up on him, but I think I agree with Sean. Is it doesn't seem like they have the confidence in him. The guy's only 24 years old. We saw him kind of go through the minors pretty fast. I'd like to see him give him a shot. It's almost, to me, he hasn't had a fair shot since day one. I mean, the moment Girardi took over, I felt like the first day of spring training, and even before before spring training even started, Girardi kind of raved about how important Quinn's speed can be, how important that does in the field and everything. And he's kind of went on and on about how good of a player Quinn can be on this team. And since day one, it's like he never even mentioned Hazley.
That's the kind of thing that kind of get into a player's head a little bit too. When your manager is showing clear favoritism towards the other guy, it's sometimes it has a motivational effect, and sometimes it's just it can kind of drag a little bit.
Especially for a 24-year-old that didn't really get to play last year. I mean, he came up late in the season, then he got hurt, and then he kind of bounced around up and down. So to me, he's never had a real shot. But I really think, so for me personally, with him only being 24, I wouldn't say I have no faith left in him, but I think the team doesn't have much faith. And I think I would not be surprised if he's not here next year, or we kind of make some type of center field move in the offseason. But again, he's 24, so he can go. I mean, maybe a new change of scenery can kind of restart his career somewhere, and a new coach can help him out. But I think it would be pretty early to give up on him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that he still, if he develops the way that we kind of at first anticipated, he could become a pretty good 5-tool player, especially if he builds on that power a little bit. And we know that he's a good contact hitter. He needs to figure some things out. So I'm with you. I'm hoping that they're going to be patient with him. I'm hoping that he's going to get a shot with this team in the future, because I feel like he could be a pretty good player if they just let everything work itself out. So some other big news in the National League East, and this pertains to the Phillies because they're right on the Braves' tail right now for the top spot in the NL East division. Atlanta losing Max Fried. That's a big loss because they already have a pretty I would say mediocre rotation, and losing a guy like Fried, that's a big blow to them. Andrew, what do you take away from that? Is that the kind of a death blow to their rotation, or do you think that they can bounce back from that? And how does it affect the Phillies down the stretch?
So 2 things. I'd say one, it really affects the Phillies in a positive way. I mean, obviously you don't want to wish an injury upon anyone, but this is a significant injury. A guy that had, I can't remember his exact right, but I know it was below 2. I think it was around like a 1.88 or something like that. But I know he was 6-0, so clearly a very good pitcher for that rotation that's struggled from guys struggling to injury after injury. So this is a significant blow to the team. This is one that I really think could affect them, just the morale of the team too, is when like, think about it, when we know you can go out and trust a guy and have a good shot to win every 5th day, and he's gone now. Now questions go inside each player's head. Especially for this next week and a half, where you don't really know who's going to take over for that spot. I know it's honestly going to depend on the former Philly and Cole Hamels. He's ready. He's been working out, and he's going to make his return in these next few. I think next week he's supposed to make his Brave debut. So if he can kind of come out and pitch well for him, or if I know some people think with him getting older, he's not going to be nearly as good as he used to be, and he's a little washed up. So if he turns out to be a great pitcher, then they can survive this. But if he kind of turns out to be just show his age and struggle a lot, then the Braves are going to start to fall, I think. And I really favor the Phillies, and it's weird to say, but even the Marlins, with the way they beat up the Braves now, the Marlins have made this a three-way race for the division. So depending on what happens this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting series, that's for sure. The 7 games could really determine a lot in terms of the playoffs. But going back to Max Fried, looking at his numbers right now, 6-0 with a $1.98 ERA. That's Cy Young level numbers right there. You're talking about a guy who, unbeaten, as I said, 6-0 with the ERA under 2, possibly, a front runner to win the Cy Young Award in the National League, and really the stalwart of that Braves rotation. And it's kind of in shambles right now because they put him on the 10-day, but with muscle spasms, who knows how long this is going to last. That could be a season ender right there, or it could just be the 10 days. Either way, with a limited amount of time left in the regular season, that changes a lot of things. That probably means he's missing at least 2 starts, maybe even 3. And yeah, it's the Braves also have some pretty tough matchups down the road as well. I haven't looked at their schedule. I know they got some good teams coming up. So not having Fried on the mound, that's going to hurt them a lot, and that's going to give the Phillies a chance to, come from behind and maybe make up a few games on them. Sean, what's your takeaway on this? Is this a big advantage? Is this a big opportunity for the Phillies to kind of make up some ground on Atlanta?
Absolutely. With all of the injuries that Atlanta has had to deal with in their starting rotation, this is another huge one. Fried was a Cy Young candidate. He was in legitimate, the MLB tweeted out a couple days ago, who do you think is going to win the Cy Young and the NL Cy Young? And Max Fried was one of the 4 names up there. And, like Andrew said, I would never wish injury on anybody. It's awful. And he's so fun to watch. He's such a great young talent. And it's just like Acuna. It's just like Albies. I hate that I have to watch him in a Braves uniform. But, it's a huge blow. And for the first time pretty much all season since we started struggling out of the gate against the Marlins, it feels like the Phillies actually have a chance to take the division if they end up playing well, and if the bullpen can hold it, and if the offense can stay hot, and if certain guys can step up. It's not too far out of the realm of possibility that the Phillies can end up in the 1 through 3 seed, not the 1 because the Dodgers, but they'll be the 2 or the 3 seed in the NL, and they might end up getting a bad opponent, and they're right there in an actual playoff scenario.
Yeah, like you guys alluded to, I'm the same way. I'd never wish injury upon anybody. But, Max Fried, a really good young left-handed pitcher. That's another thing, too, the fact that he's a left-handed pitcher. They're so much more rare to have a good lefty than it is to have a good righty. And I feel like when you lose a star lefty, you're losing – I don't want to say a lot more, but you're definitely losing more value than you would in a right-handed pitcher of equal caliber, because there's a lot of left-handed hitters out there, and that the lefty-lefty matchup is always very favorable, and especially a team like the Phillies, you've got a lot of good bats. You got Harper, you've got Didi, you've got Jay Bruce, you've got a bunch of guys, a bunch of good hitters on that left side who, let's face it, they would rather face right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching, and you lose a star left-hander, that's a big deal. So once again, hate to see Max Fried go down. That's always unfortunate, no matter which team he's playing for. But it does open up an opportunity for the Phillies to potentially make up some games here. So we'll see how that pans out. Anyway, you guys have anything else you want to? We got some AMA questions here. You guys have anything else real quick that you want to touch on for the upcoming series for the with the Miami Marlins?
Yeah, I was just gonna say something real quick. I was brought up the standings to see where it was at going in the series. I was looking at home and away splits. Did you guys know the Marlins are 17-9 away, but they're 2-9 at home?
Yeah,
Shit.
they
That's
can't
wild.
win their own ballpark.
Wait. 17-9 away, 2-9. They've played 15 less home games than they have road games.
It
That's
feels
insane.
like a home series against the Phillies is what they need to balance that out. That's
Seriously.
what that sounds like to me.
Right? Yeah, that's crazy numbers right there. I think the Phillies have some pretty wild, not in terms of wins and losses, but I feel like they have a lot more home games played than they've played road games so far. And I know they went a long stretch before they went up to Toronto for that doubleheader. They had 15 consecutive home games or something like that. So the Phillies down the stretch, that's going to balance out too, because they got some road. They got the 7 games, and then they have a trip to DC, and I believe a trip to Tampa as well.
Yeah.
So that'll even out.
Yeah, we're at 25 home and 14 away, so 11 game difference there.
Yeah,
So pretty
and then we have a 4-game series against Toronto, but even though I think all 4 are going to be at Citizens Bank, 2 of them are going to count as away games. So, yeah, and they already had a situation like that earlier in the season where they had an away game at Citizens Bank Park too.
Weird year.
Yeah, what a year, 2020, man. Nothing quite like it.
No, I was also looking at one last thing. Potential playoff matchups too, since obviously Phillies in the division race. The Cubs and the Braves have the same record, and the Cubs would be the 2 seed because they give the division teams the higher seed before the second place teams, even though the Padres have the better record. But if the season ended today, the Cubs would play the Giants first round. So if the Phillies found a way to overtake the Cubs, could you imagine a Phillies versus Gabe Kapler first round playoff?
Oh my God, man! You know what's funny is that Kapler has his Giants in playoff position, although not a great team, but he has them in a playoff position. And yet, every time I go on Twitter, and I don't really follow many Giants fans, but sometimes I'll type Giants or I'll type Kapler into the search bar just to see what they're talking about. They all fucking hate the guy out there. Nobody likes Gabe Kapler out in San Francisco. Yeah, if the season ended today, they'd be a playoff team.
It's funny just because he does the same thing he did here, and I was never a hater, but just people don't like the way he does manages that bullpen and everything.
I don't know. I think something about Kapler, maybe he's a little bit more cut out to manage those less talented teams. You know, maybe he's more cut out to manage the teams that don't have star players like the Harpers and the Real Mutos and the Nolas and whatnot.
Are you calling the 2018 Phillies a successful team to work with?
I mean, look at the roster they had, man. What, like Maikel Franco is their best hitter that year?
Yeah, no.
I think.
Not great. Carlos Santana and
Santana 220, and his biggest value was drawing walks, and yeah, Aaron Nola was easily like far and away the best player on that team, and got them to finish at 80 and 82 on the season. So, I mean, it was a good job by Kapler, but I personally didn't like him because I didn't think he was cut out to manage the personalities that they had last year. But he's doing a good job out there in San Francisco, so kudos to him. Anyway, we've got some AMAs here. We actually haven't done this in a long-ass time, probably since before the season started, but I figured we had some left over and, you know, kind of make this a little bit of a fun episode here and kind of break things up a little bit. So these are all questions that we've had come in from listeners to the show, and if you are listening to this show, feel free to send us some more. We can get to them in one of our future shows. Starting off with the first question, and Andrew, we'll start with you. What's your favorite fast food restaurant?
That's a good question. I will say I think Chick-fil-A is a little overrated. I will go out on there and say that. That's not my favorite. I know it's the popular pick.
Yeah.
I'll say I don't remember ever seeing any up north, but down here there's this place called Slim Chickens, and I think that's my favorite fast food restaurant now. I went there a lot when I was in Stillwater at Oklahoma State. So I'd say that's my favorite fast food now, Slim Chicken. I don't know how far it kind of goes, but that'd be my go-to down here at least.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, but it sounds pretty good though. It's another. What is it? Is that similar to Chick-fil-A? Like just a place that serves chicken sandwiches and that type of thing?
Yeah, they got a lot of different options. They go from wings. They go from chicken wings to barbecue, buffalo, whatever you want. A lot of good. They got good fries there too. And then basically this is just chicken strips, chicken fingers, and then the chicken sandwiches too. They just got a lot bigger menu and a lot bigger variety.
Oh, sounds like a place that they need to introduce to the Northeast so I can check it out.
I would love it.
Sean, what about you? You got a particular fast food restaurant that you enjoy more than the others?
As terrible as it is for your body and everything else, Taco Bell without a doubt is my favorite.
Yes.
Many drunk nights have been spent driving through the Taco Bell drive-through, and
Just to clarify, you were the passenger in the car, though.
Oh, yes. Never the driver. I had roommates that didn't drink, and they were always up, past midnight when we were all intoxicated and needed some Taco Bell to make our night even worse.
You always
But,
have the DD to take you to Taco Bell.
yes, absolutely. But yeah, no, there was one right around the corner from our house at my school when I was there, and I can't tell you how many times we went. In like a week, it was probably like 3 or 4 times. There was Taco Bell
My
trips.
God, man. I love Taco Bell too. That's also my favorite. I can't say that I ever went there 4 times in a week. I can tell you though that one time my friends and I were pretty hammered, and we attempted to walk through the drive-through, and it didn't work because apparently there's a sensor that senses when a car is there. So we were pretty disappointed that we had to walk into the place instead of just. I mean, which makes no sense because you'd figure that walking in would probably be quicker than walking through the drive-through. I don't really know what we were thinking that night, but yeah. Anyway, Taco Bell, I fucking love it. I love getting the 5-layer burrito. No beans though, can't do the beans, but.
I gotta say to you and any listeners, if you have not tried the breakfast crunch wrap, it will literally change your life. They stop serving breakfast at 10:30, which is the most disappointing thing in the entire world. But if you ever are up before 10:30 and you're in the mood to drive to Taco Bell, it will literally change your life.
I'll have to give that. I've never done that before, so I'll have to give that a shot. Man, yeah. Appreciate the Taco Bell love, though. It's always a great place to go when you're in a pinch. All right, so moving on to our second question here. This is an interesting question. Sean, we'll start with you this time. What's your favorite bad thing that's ever happened to a Phillies rival?
I'm just going to go off recent memory. It's recency bias. But the Braves going into, what was it, a Game 5 or a Game 7 against the Cardinals?
And getting doors blown off.
At the pivotal game, they finally get a chance to make it out of the first round of the playoffs, and they give up, 10 runs in the first inning?
Yeah.
I was extremely giddy that entire day. That was a good one. That's recency bias, but I'd love to hear what Andrew has to say about this.
All right, Andrew, what's your rebuttal to that?
I have to say the Mets losing in the World Series because it really depleted that team. They had all the hype around all those pitchers, and everyone thought they'd win that and steal it from Kansas City because of the pitching. They find a way to lose that World Series, and then that was just the beginning of them losing Matt Harvey, then eventually losing Zach Wheeler, and it just showed that rotation wasn't as good and couldn't live up to the hype, and now we see how much it's starting to fail. So I'd say the downfall of the Mets right there.
Well, one of the reasons it's starting to fail, let's be fair, is because that guy Zach Wheeler is the ace of our rotation right now. We got that going, right? Anyway, I'm also going to go with a Mets-related one here. I'm going to go with Game 7 of the 2006 NLCS. The Mets were so hype after that unbelievable catch by Andy Chavez to, I believe it kept the game tied in like the 7th inning or something like that. But then one of my least favorite players in all of baseball, I fucking hate the guy, but Yadier Molina hits the home run in the top half of the 9th inning, puts the Cardinals ahead. I think it was like 2-1 or something like that. Bottom of the 9th, Mets have a chance to win it. Carlos Beltran goes down looking at a full count curveball. Mets season, the top seed in the National League, the favorite, I believe, to win the World Series that year, goes down in shambles. A beautiful thing. A truly, truly beautiful ending to their season that year.
Can I also do a crossover real quick?
Of course.
I got to throw in the Dez Bryant catch or no catch, whatever you want to call it, because being down here, too, and being around a bunch of Cowboys fans, it made it that much better and funnier to have that happen and then them eventually lose that playoff game because of that.
Oh, man. Okay, what was worse? Or should I say worse? What was better for you as an Eagles fan down in Cowboys territory? The catch / no catch for Dez, or the unbelievable Aaron Rodgers throw that set up the game-winning field goal in that playoff game a few years ago?
That's tough because it brought out a lot of uproar both ways. But I gotta say the catch because you still hear about that one today because they still claim about how bad it was a catch and how they would have went on the win and everything. So I'd say that one's definitely left a more bitter taste in their heads. So I gotta go with that one.
I hope it gets more bitter over time. All right, moving on to our third question here, and this one is Phillies related. Sean, I'll start with you. Have you given up on Mickey Moniak, or do you still have faith?
He's still 21 years old. He's got all of my faith. I mean, he's still too young. He was so talented when they drafted him. I mean, he's still moving up. He's starting to improve. He's starting to pick things up. And obviously, with no minor league season this year, it's hard to tell. And the Phillies added him to the 60-man player pool, which everybody thought they were going to use him as a trade piece for somebody bigger. But I think they added him because I think they want to see what he's got. I think they want to figure out if they want to see him more. They want him to be involved. They want him to get more experience. They want to keep seeing if he's improving. And I truly think that he'll end up making his way up to the majors. It's not like he's going to be a career. He's going to have a major league debut. It's going to be way overdue, but there's still a major league caliber player. And at this point, and everybody was so high on Hazley, I think he might end up having a better career than Hazley in the long run, is what we're looking at. Because if they don't trust Hazley against lefties, maybe they'll trust Moniak more, and he might end up coming up a lot sooner than some people think.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree on the Hazley point there. I'll get to that in a second, though. Andrew, what's your takeaway on this? Are you still in on Mickey Moniak, or are you out now?
Yeah, I think, like Sean said, he's only 21. I think it's too early for me to give up on that guy, and it's a shame because I think this was going to be an important year for him and development and everything, and getting that AA games out of there. But obviously, with everything going on, that doesn't happen, and they just recently called him up, so now he'll get some work in Lehigh in these final weeks. But just to lose the whole season for him, we don't get to hear what he's done to continue to train and everything. So it's a shame because I was looking forward to watching and following him this year because, again, I thought this was going to be an important year for him, an important step forward as well. But we kind of lost that, and it'll be interesting to see what he does throughout this offseason. And I don't know the rules of the Arizona Fall League, but maybe he can somehow get into that if they do that. But I think it's too early for me to give up on him. And again, with what's going on with Hazley, who knows? You could see him moved in the offseason maybe to bring in a ready now center fielder to carry us over until we get Mickey Moniak up. So I'd say I'm not ready to give up on him, and I think they'll try to, like Sean said, I think with the lack of faith they've had in Hazley, I think they're more likely to move on from him than Moniak.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because I don't know. I haven't been a Moniak guy from the get-go. There's a lot of pressure on him, though. I'll give him that, being the number one pick straight out of high school. I feel like a lot of the fan base expected, okay, they're picking this guy number one overall and straight out of high school, not even out of college, so he must be some sort of a phenom, He must be the next Mike Trout, or must be the next Bryce Harper. You pretty much, I think a lot of people in this fan base expected that by the time he hit 20 or 21 years old, he'd already be like a budding superstar. And maybe that's not really fair to expect that of him, but to me, it's also disappointing to kind of, I guess, get the feeling that he's a number one overall pick and he might not be anything more than just like an average everyday player. Because you pick a guy that high, you expect him to be making all-star games. You expect him to be in MVP races and being the number one guy on a team that's fighting to win a championship. So yeah, there is that level of disappointment for me that he doesn't seem to be on that career path right now. Although, as you guys alluded to, he is only 21. He is making steady improvements. In terms of or as far as the argument of Moniak versus Hazley goes, it's been a rough year for Hazley. That's for sure. And Girardi, as we've seen, does not have the trust in him. From what I saw from him last year and in ball situations this year, he I think he's a more polished player. I like the fact that he's a contact hitter, that he can put the ball in play. He doesn't strike out a whole lot. I think that if you start off as a contact hitter and, as you go along, you can kind of develop that power a little bit and turn from a guy who hits near 300 with no power to a guy who hits near 300 with decent power. I think the power will come along with him. And the glove, misplay on Sunday, that was a really rare occurrence because by and large he's been pretty good with the glove throughout his short career so far. So, yeah, I'm more sold on Hazley being a good player and being a steady piece of this team than I am with Mickey Moniak. That's where I stand. I don't want to say that I've totally given up on Moniak, but I am really disappointed in, the lack of development, for lack of a better term, so far in his young professional career. All right, so next question is, and Sean, we'll start with you this time. What's the stupidest thing you've done since the start of the coronavirus?
Stupidest. I went to a beer Olympics, I'd say like late to mid-June. There was a decent amount of people there. That's about all I can think of. I like to think I've been careful, other than some small events where I would prefer not to be the only person to say I'd rather not be in a giant group of people. But I would like to think that I have been careful. Maybe waiting 4 months into the virus to get a job, but.
No. I don't think the question was really about that. I guess it was just like a general question of people getting quarantine brain or whatever they like to call it, and just doing absent-minded things. Not really directly related to COVID, but just your head's not in it, and you kind of just do something you wouldn't normally do. I guess that's kind of what the question is alluding to here.
For a week straight, I got drunk and got on NHL 20 and played whatever Chell, World of Chell, for an entire week with the same 4 people. The 4 of us got on like at midnight and stayed up until 4 a.m. and all 4 of us just got hammered.
God,
that's the dumbest one because it turned me into an alcoholic for a little while, but I'm evening out now, so it's all right.
Yeah. For the record, I have NHL. I fucking hate it. So I'm kind of with you. If I'm gonna play for that long, I would have to get drunk in order to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Andrew, what about you?
It's such a tough question because I haven't done much since going into quarantine. I mean, there's not much going on, and being so away from everyone, and it's just not. I'd say similar to Sean is just staying up. I guess it's just so odd because with how weird quarantine's been and being stuck in, it's you feel never tired anymore because you're not really doing anything that much. So I feel we're all, or at least me, I stay up later, and instead of getting a better sleep schedule, I feel my sleep schedule's gotten worse since the quarantine started.
Oh my God, I'm in the same boat, man. Oh well, I was until recently, but yeah, I had this thing going where I was staying up until 4 a.m, sometimes 5, and sleeping in until noon or whatever. And then, the work started picking up eventually with the coronavirus, and demand went up. And I had to get back into a better sleep schedule. But yeah, I was in that funk too for a little bit. Yeah, it's once you get yourself in a bad way sleep-wise, it's kind of hard to break yourself out of it though.
Exactly. And it's just when it all started and we kind of all just stuck inside doing nothing, it was because there wasn't much to do. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but it was just without any activity or anything, you just never felt tired, and I felt the time just got away from all of us.
Yeah, really, especially if you're sitting there playing video games the whole time. If you're playing the show, you're playing Grand Theft Auto, and you just, the PlayStation or whatever console you have, they don't have the time anywhere on the screen. So
exactly.
You're just staring at that screen the whole. It's like being in a casino, pretty much. They don't have the clocks in the casinos. They don't have the time on the video game screen or TV screen or whatever. So you play for what you feel like is an hour, and you look at the clock on your phone or whatever, and it turns out it's 5 hours later. So I'd say that's probably among the stupider things that I've done is staying up that late playing video games, and then having to actually go to work the next day because once work picked up and started getting more shifts, I still wasn't completely broken out of that funk. I was still staying up until 4 a.m. and then having to wake up at 9 to go into work. So I had something else that I just had on my mind and it slipped my mind, so I'm gonna have to go with that, staying up too late before going into work the next day. Not a fun experience. And then working a 10-hour shift, about like halfway through that shift, you start to feel it. It's pretty rough. Anyway, moving on to our final question here, and Andrew, we'll start with you. Suppose the Phillies roster is the same when ballparks open the fans as it is right now. First time you go to a game, which player are you most likely to boo?
To boo? Let's see. If he pitches that day, Vince Velasquez. I mean, with how much he continues to struggle, I assume he means on the Phillies, right?
Yeah, it's if the roster's the same.
Okay.
I
have to say Vince Velasquez just because I kind of like all the hitters, and we already mentioned I still have faith in Hazen. I think he can turn it around. So I'd probably turn to the pitching, and it would be either one of the many bullpen pitchers that stink. And I mean, for how much we get on Vince, I'd say I'd continue the trend with Vince.
Well, it's pretty easy to boo the bullpen guys because you just got to go out behind the bullpen out there in Ashburn Alley, and they're right there. They are the lower level bullpen, so it's a little bit tougher, but yeah, still, just go out there and you can let Vince or whoever else know exactly how you feel about him. Sean, who are you booing first?
I'm not going to go the easy route with the bullpen. If they still had Cole Irvin or Austin Davis out there as of right now, that would be the easy answer. No, and I'm not going offensively because I feel like a lot of these guys are actually likable. Big Andrew Knapp guy, even though most of the fan base still continues to hate on him for being the most average backup catcher in the world, and which is actually a good thing. I'm going to go with boneheaded defender at most likely second base, and that's Gene Segura, because I guarantee the first game I go to, he's going to have 3 singles and a double, and he's going to make a boneheaded play at second base and kick an easy double play and have runners on first and second, and I'm going to let loose because he's not a smart, heads up baseball player. I love the plate. I've definitely turned on him over the season because he has exceeded most of my expectations at the plate. But you can always count on him to make a boneheaded play in the field.
Yeah, he's basically a reincarnation of Cesar Hernandez in the field, which is it's frustrating because just like Cesar, he has the ability to be good out there. We've seen him make some really nice plays. He has the athleticism. He has the ability to make some great plays and keep runs off the board if he really wanted to, but just the mental aspect of it isn't always there with him. So, yeah, very valid reason. I could totally see that happening too. He gets 3 or 4 hits. He has a great day offensively, and then top half of the 9th inning or something rolls around and runners in scoring position, he just boots a ground ball or something like that and completely fucks up the great day that he is having up until that point. So I am going to have to go probably the same route as Andrew with this. I'm definitely going over to Ashburn Alley and getting as close as I can to that Phillies bullpen and just letting Vince Velasquez know exactly how I feel about his Phillies tenure and how he should have been traded years ago and how he literally made his entire existence in Philadelphia off of one great start against the San Diego Padres. Albeit the Padres, not of this year, but the Padres of 4 years ago that couldn't hit a fucking beach ball if they wanted to. So yeah, I'm going with Velasquez as well. And also, I just remember what I had on mind for the stupidest thing I've done this year. A couple weeks ago, power outage hits the Philadelphia area. I fucking hate Pico. I'm sure you've seen the rage tweets that I sent to Pico during our power outages. On a whim, I went on Amazon. I spent $500 on a generator.
Nice.
Oh.
I mean, good for backup, but yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
it could help down the road though. You never know.
Right.
It could, but it's probably not worth it.
You'll always
Anyway.
have it.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. Anyway, you guys got anything else you want to throw in before we wrap up this episode here?
That's pretty much all I got. Just hopefully we find a way to do well in this upcoming series, and it'll be fun to watch. Well, I say fun, but also frustrating probably. But watching Sixto Sanchez this upcoming weekend.
All right, so takeaways from the series: 7 games. How many did the Phillies win? Remember, it's down in Miami. It's a place of doom for the Phillies. It's against a team that has owned the Phillies, and they've got 1 game against Sixto, so that's probably a loss right there.
I'm gonna take 4-3.
You're taking 4.
4 and 3. We win 4.
4 and 3. Okay. Sean?
I'm thinking we're in true Phillies fashion. We're going to keep the Marlins right around where they can take our playoff spot right from us. I think they end up winning 3 out of the 7 games. I just don't see them taking
3 out of
any.
7.
I don't see them taking any more than 4. There's no way they go 5-2 or 6-1. They're going negative. It's going to be so frustrating because it's the Marlins. They just can't beat that team. The bullpen's going to stay cold. Bryce might start to pick it up, hopefully, but I just see them winning 3 out of the 7.
Yeah, I think 3 sounds like a good number. Not in terms of, 3 is acceptable, but it's Miami and they own us, and that ballpark sucks. So, yeah, 3 out of 7, and I totally would not be surprised if they did worse than that. I totally wouldn't be surprised if they go 2-5 or even 1-6. And God, let's hope they don't go 0-7 down there.
Oh.
Yeah, 3 and 4 sounds like about what to expect from the series upcoming here.
Man, I can't imagine Sunday's show if we're down 0-6 in that series.
Oh my God!
Oh boy.
We might have the most unhappy Shane that we have ever experienced if he's on that show. And if it's not him, then it'll probably be Biscuit bringing all the emotion.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yep. Jeez.
Oh, God. Well, before we wrap this one up, I just want to give a shout out to the Jackdaws, responsible for intro and outro music. Great Celtic rock band. You can find them on the internet at www.thejackdaws.com. They also have a Patreon account if you feel like supporting them that way. www.patreon.com/thejackdaws. Also, a shout out to Just Food. Their owner, Asian Rob, a good friend of the Chasing the Pennant podcast. You can find them on the phone at 215-794-3663. I finally have that down, completely memorized. I don't have to read it off a script anymore. It's a 215-794-FOOD. They are located in Buckingham, Pennsylvania, Buckingham Green off of York Road. So great selection of food there. If you're looking for something to eat while you're watching a game or any other occasion, once again, 215-794-3663. That is Just Food. We thank you for listening to this episode of the Chasing the Pennant podcast. We'll be back with another one in just a few days.
I used to be revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too. He beat me Sunday through and through. And such eager my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights. Well, lucky son, still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.